Jami-Lee Ross, the rogue National MP, has done a U-turn on his decision earlier in the week to resign, instead vowing to stay on in Parliament as an independent in his Botany electorate. Speaking exclusively to News Talk ZP this evening, Mr Ross released a second secret recording with leader Simon Bridges. He's admitted having an affair with two women, one of them a married MP, and he apologised to his wife, Lucy Schwaner.
I owe my wife a huge apology. I have done some things which I'm not proud of, and I owe her a huge apology. I have apologised to her in person, and I'm going to continue apologising to her in person. There's been some revelations about me recently which are pretty hard to read and pretty hard to hear. I dispute the way in which they've been written up, and I dispute the way in which many of the details have come out and have been pieced together. But the bottom line is I haven't been a good husband, and I need to do a lot of things in the future to make that right, and I'm going to continue doing that.
Was that a surprise to your wife?
Yes. However, the reality of what we're looking at here is I've gone and done some things where I've questioned some seriously powerful people. I've questioned Simon Bridges on donations. I've questioned whether he's done things lawfully. I've questioned the things he's asked me to do. And what is quite common in the National Party is when you question power, when you become a liability for the leader, things end up in the media.
Okay.
But can I just say, Heather, what we're seeing here is something which I don't think we've ever seen in the Parliament. A scab has been picked on the parliamentary personal issues. It has long been a case where personal matters are kept private, but we're now seeing the rules of the game have changed within Parliament.
Jami-Lee, I want to come back to the allegations that you've made this week. I just want to ask you,
Sure.
Has your wife... Do you expect that your wife and you will work this through and your marriage will remain intact?
Yes, we will be working that through. It'll be a long road ahead, and I'm deeply regretful for my actions. But there's a lot of work to do.
She didn't suspect anything of what was going on?
Well, look, there's a lot of MPs down there, and I think the reality that we will learn in the future more and more now that the rules of the game have changed is that there's a lot of bed hopping that goes on down in that Parliament. There's a lot of behaviour that a lot of people would want kept secret and has been kept secret until now. But the way in which we now play politics is we lift the bed sheets and we start getting into that detail.
Jami-Lee Ross there talking in an exclusive interview this evening on News Talk ZB. Lisa Owen joins me now in the Checkpoint studio. Lisa, you listened to the entirety of that interview. This is interesting in the sense that he is fessing up. He says, I have not been a good husband.
Yeah, there was a long list of apologies actually when you listen through, and another person that he apologised to was Katrina Bungard. Now, she was a woman who stood in the Howick electorate, local body electorate, and has been quoted as saying that she felt, well, bullied by Jami-Lee Ross. Now, Jami-Lee Ross in this conversation said he apologised to her. He apologised to Katrina Bungard and said, I owe her an apology for the way I treated her. I shouldn't have done that, he said. He went on to confirm, now this was really interesting, he went on to confirm something that we reported yesterday on Checkpoint, which is that the National Party and high-ranked figures within the National Party, including Peter Goodfellow, who is the president of the party, was involved in brokering a confidentiality agreement. Now, Jami-Lee Ross, during the course of this interview this afternoon, confirmed indeed that there was a confidentiality agreement and a non-disclosure, and he signed that. We reported yesterday the existence of such an agreement, and the woman was asked to sign it, which in essence, well, it stopped her, it gagged her from talking about what her complaints were around Jami-Lee Ross. We now know that both parties in that signed it, and indeed that was facilitated by the National Party. So that's interesting. Jami-Lee Ross also speaking there about the fact that previously personal relationships have been off limits. You don't talk about that stuff. It was almost like a warning to other people in some respect, maybe interpreted as a warning. He said there's a lot of bed hopping that goes on in Parliament and that people won't want that talked about. He raised an interesting point around potentially a double standard. He said he obviously had been spoken to about, I think it was Paula Bennett who described it as behaviour that was perhaps unbecoming for a married MP. Jami-Lee Ross has laid out there that one of the women he was having an affair with was a married member of Parliament.
And he's sort of questioning whether that MP was approached in the same way by the leadership.
Raising that as an issue, whether that person was spoken to in the same context. The inference being is this behaviour just being used to fire salvos at me, to make me look bad and to undermine me? And he went on to say, you know, that's part of what they're doing, in his view, if he were to stand in a by-election, that they were going to sully his name. And he came off the back of that comment saying, well, actually, I'm not going to stand down now.
Right.
I'm going to stay here.
And look, Lisa, if we were in any doubt earlier in the week that Jami-Lee Ross was not going to go down and try to bring the whole party down with him, we certainly have it very, very clear now. We've got these tweets here, and he's even admitted that he himself was involved, particularly in the Todd Barclay affair, in terms of being the party whip and bringing someone down. He's saying that very approach by the leadership is now being directed right at him.
Absolutely. And I think the most intriguing thing about this is anyone who is reported in political circles knows that all of this stuff goes on behind the scenes, Alex. It is just never aired in public. And we are getting a unique insight into what goes on behind the scenes, and that most of the time is kept silent and kept away from the public. People don't like to air their dirty laundry. And as you say, Jami-Lee Ross has fired back up on Twitter again, and we haven't heard from him on that platform since he released the tweets yesterday about the funding and the donations. But we have a long list of tweets this afternoon saying he's not proud of his actions, apologising to his wife again, saying that the relationships were consensual. That's really a significant piece of information. But he goes on to say that there is serious rot in New Zealand politics, so he's not submitting his resignation, as we said, which was quite the surprise this afternoon. Instead, he's going to stay on because he's going to stem that rot, is what he is telling us, by speaking openly about what's going on within the National Party. And that's where we got this insight, where he said that he was called in to get information on Todd Barclay, the former Clutha MP, who has since exited the party after he was involved in a situation that Jami-Lee Ross says was starting to embarrass Bill English. So they brought in reinforcements. Jami-Lee Ross was part of that team. Find something and help us get rid of him. And now the gun
It's turned on him.
is turned on him.
Very interesting. Thank you for that update, that analysis, Lisa Owen there joining us in the Checkpoint studio. There certainly will be more to come, more nervous national MPs about what he might say in Parliament under parliamentary privilege, also what he might release on other phone conversations that he may have taped.